The story of a mother's love. Once there lived a poor woman with her child in a small house. Her child was sick and weak. One day the mother sat, sadly, watching her sick little child lying in his bed. He was quite pale and his eyes were closed. He breathed so softly that the mother wondered if he had passed on or was still with her. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, and an old man wrapped in a large coat came in. He was Death. Death sat down beside the bed with the mother. Death helped to rock the cradle, for the mother was very tired. The mother asked,
"He will live, won't he? Surely God will not take him away from me."
Death didn't answer. The mother looked down. Her eyes were full of tears, and her head was heavy. She was so tired that she slept for only a moment. When she woke up, Death had gone and taken her child. In desperation, the mother jumped up and rushed into the forest, but she didn't know where to go.
Oh no!
She saw a thorn bush and asked,
"Have you seen Death go by with my little child?" "Yes, but you must warm me first in your arms, for I am freezing to death here. Then I will tell you,"
replied the thorn bush. The mother agreed. She held the thorn bush close, and the thorns made her bleed. The bush got warmth from the mother's heart. Then the thorn bush said,
"Take the path to the right."
The mother hurried down the path and came to a lake. She couldn't cross it as it was too wide and too cold. The lake said, "You have the purest eyes I have ever seen. If you give them to me, I will take you across to the other side." The mother agreed. Immediately, the lake carried her across to the other side as if she were on a swing. On the other side, she came to a very long greenhouse, which was full of flowers. This was where Death cared for the flowers, each of which being a human life. The mother was now blind, so she could only walk from flower to flower to listen to their heartbeat. Finally, she found the little flower that was her child. The mother cried out. An old lady who cared for the plants came to the mother and said,
"I can help you save your child. But what will you give me in exchange?"
The mother said,
"I have nothing left to give." "Give me your long black hair,"
the old lady said. The mother agreed right away in hope of finding out how to get her child back. The woman told her,
"When Death comes back, you must threaten to rip up some of the flowers. Death will be afraid and will then give back your child."
Shortly after Death arrived, he asked the poor mother,
"How did you find your way here?"
"I am a mother,"
she answered. At once, the mother grabbed two beautiful flowers in her hands and cried out,
Give me back my child, or I will tear up these flowers.
Death said,
Do not hurt them. You are unhappy. But do you want another mother to be unhappy too?
No!
The mother hesitantly exclaimed and let the flowers go.
All right.
Death said,
I will give your eyes back right away.
Immediately, the mother could see more clearly than even before. Then, Death pointed at a well in the garden and continued,
Now, please look into this well.
The mother looked down and saw the futures of 2 children. One was full of happiness and love, and the other was full of misery and despair. Death gently said,
Either of them could be the future of your child, if he were to live.
The mother screamed out in fear.
Which of them belongs to my child? It would be better to carry my child into God's kingdom than to allow him to suffer such a miserable life.
Death said,
But I don't understand. Do you want your child back, or should I carry him away to the unknown land?
The mother wrung her hands, fell to her knees, and cried,
I would rather my child be in paradise than live and endure a miserable life.
Finally, Death carried the sick little child to the heavenly kingdom. The mother sadly went back to her house, praying to God for her child's better life in the paradise.
The Boy and the Apple Tree. A long time ago, there was a huge apple tree. A little boy loved to come and play around it every day. He climbed to the treetop, ate the apples, and took a nap under its shadow. He loved the tree, and the tree loved to play with him. Time went by, and the little boy grew up. He no longer played around the tree every day. One day, the boy came back to the tree, and he was sad. "Come and play with me," the tree said to the boy. "I am no longer a little kid. I do not play around trees anymore," he replied. "I want toys. I need money to buy them." "Sorry, I do not have money, but you can pick all my apples, sell them, and have money for toys." The boy was excited. He picked all the apples on the tree and left happily. The boy did not come back after he picked the apples. The tree was sad. One day, the boy turned into a man and returned, and the tree was excited. "Come and play with me," the tree said. "I do not have time to play. I have to work for my family. We need a house for shelter. Can you help me?" "Sorry, I do not have a house, but you can chop off my branches to build your house." So the man cut all the branches off the tree and left happily. The tree was glad to see him happy. But the man did not return. The tree was again lonely and sad. One hot summer day, the man returned, and the tree was delighted. "Come and play with me," said the tree.
"I am getting old. I want to go sailing and relax. Can you give me a boat?"
asked the man. "Use my trunk to build your boat. You can sail far away and be happy," replied the tree. So the man cut the tree trunk to make a boat. He went sailing and did not return for a long time. Finally, the man returned after many years. "Sorry, my boy. I do not have anything for you anymore. No more apples for you," the tree said.
"No problem. I do not have any teeth to eat them,"
the man replied. "I do not have a trunk for you to climb on," said the tree.
"I am too old for that now,"
the man replied. "I really cannot give you anything. The only thing left is my dying roots," the tree said tearfully.
"I do not need much now, just a place to rest. I am tired after all these years,"
the man replied. "Good. Old tree roots are the best place to rest. Come sit down with me and rest," said the tree. The man sat down, and the tree was glad and smiled. This is a story of everyone. The tree is like our parents. When we are young, we love to play with our mom and dad. When we grow up, we leave them, only to come to them when we need something or when we are in trouble. No matter what, parents will always be there and give everything they can to make us happy. You may think the boy is cruel to the tree, but that is how all of us treat our parents. We take them for granted. We don't appreciate all they do for us until it's too late.
Mountain Story. A son and his father were walking in the mountains. Suddenly, the son fell and hurt himself. "Ah!" he screamed. To his surprise, he heard his voice repeating somewhere in the mountain. "Ah!" Curious, he yelled, "Who are you?" He received the answer, "Who are you?" And then he screamed to the mountain, "I admire you." The voice answered, "I admire you." Angered at the response, he screamed, "Coward!" He received the answer, "Coward!" He looked at his father and asked, "What's going on?" The father smiled and said, "My son, pay attention." This time, the father screamed, "You are a champion!" The voice answered, "You are a champion!" The boy was surprised and did not understand. Then the father explained, "People call this an echo, but really, this is life. It gives you back everything you say or do. Our life is simply a reflection of our actions. If you want more love in the world, create more love in your heart. If you want more competence in your team, improve your competence. This relationship applies to all aspects of life. Life will give you back everything you have given to it. Your life is not a coincidence. It's a reflection of you.
The Selfish Giant. Once there was a beautiful garden. The garden was filled with fruit trees and many kinds of beautiful flowers. Children from the village loved to play in the garden. As soon as school was out for the day, they always came to play there. A big old castle sat at the back of the garden. According to legend, a giant once lived there, but he had been gone for a very long time. The giant had been gone so long that no one expected to see him again. One day, the children in the garden heard loud thumping sounds. The thumping was so loud that it shook the earth.
What could that be?
The children asked each other. Then they looked up and saw the giant. The giant was very angry.
How dare you children play in my garden?
The giant yelled.
Go away and do not come back again.
The giant put up signs telling everyone to stay away. Then he built a tall stone wall around his garden.
That should keep those children out? Ha 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 ha!
The giant laughed to himself. Then he went inside to sleep. The plants in the garden were not happy that the giant had returned. The trees and flowers enjoyed the company of the children from the village, but the children were no longer around. The warm sunbeams also decided to leave the giant's garden. Because the giant chased the children out, winter came quickly to his garden. No plants grew, and the weather was cold all the time. When spring and summer came to the village, it did not come to the giant's garden. The giant went back to bed and slept some more. One day, the giant woke up to the sound of a chirping bird. He looked out the window and saw that spring had returned to the garden. Then he discovered that the children found a way into the garden through a gap in the stone wall. The giant now saw the error of his ways and decided to take down the wall. But when he opened the castle door, the children ran away. The giant then saw a boy who was trying to climb a tree. The giant bent over and gently helped the boy climb up onto the branch. He sat down and said,
It is your garden now. I am truly sorry for chasing you away.
The giant then went to work, knocking down the big stone wall. The children all came to play in the garden, and spring returned. For many years, the giant lived in the castle, and he happily played with all the children from the village that came to visit. his grandson. Once upon a time, there was a very old man. His eyes couldn't see very well, his ears couldn't hear very well, and his knees shook when he tried to walk. When he sat at the table, he could hardly hold the spoon. He spilled the soup on the tablecloth, and sometimes it ran down his chin. The son and his wife did not like this.
Can't you be more careful?
The wife said. So they made the old grandfather sit and eat in the corner behind the stove. They gave him just a little food in an earthenware bowl. The old man used to look sadly at the table, and his eyes would fill with tears. One day, his shaking hands could not hold the bowl, and it fell down and broke. The young woman scolded him.
Can't you be more careful?
He said nothing, but looked even sadder. So, for a few pennies, they bought him a wooden bowl for him to eat from. One day, they were all sitting around inside. The little grandson of 4 years old began to gather some pieces of wood on the floor. "What are you doing, son?" asked his father.
I am making a little trough for you and Mother to eat out of when I am big,
the grandson said. The son and his wife looked at each other. They felt very ashamed of themselves and started to cry. "We are so sorry, Father," the son said. From then on, they took the old grandfather to the table and let him eat with them. Even if he spilled a little food, they did not say anything.
The Pine Tree. Once, in a forest, grew a little pine tree. He felt quite lonely, as there were no other pine trees around. The pine tree had long, slender green needles. He liked to be the only green tree in the snowy winter time. But in the summer, he wanted to have big leaves like the other trees. One night, the pine tree thought,
"I wish that I could have big leaves of gold."
When he woke in the morning, the wish had come true, and he had gold leaves. The pine tree was very happy to see his gold leaves sparkling in the sunlight.
"How beautiful I am,"
he thought.
"How my leaves sparkle in the sun."
Soon, a woodcutter came to the forest. He plucked all the gold leaves off and took them away. The pine tree was very sad. Then he wished to have leaves of glass so that no one could take them away. The next morning, the wish had come true, and the pine tree had leaves of glass. He was very happy to hear his glass leaves tinkling when the wind blew.
"How beautiful I am now,"
The pine tree thought.
"How my leaves tinkle in the wind."
But in the afternoon, a big storm came. All the glass leaves shattered and fell to the ground. The pine tree was sad again and wished to have big green leaves. The next morning, the pine tree was very happy when the wish had come true.
Now I am like the other trees, with beautiful big green leaves,
he thought. But soon a goat came along and ate all the big green leaves. The pine tree cried and thought,
I wish I could just have my long green needles back again.
The next morning, he was very happy when he got the needles back.
Gold leaves, glass leaves, and big green leaves are all fine. However, long, slender green needles are good for a little pine tree like me,
thought the little tree. Since then, the pine tree lived happily with his needles every single day. He had learned a lesson that he should be happy with what he had, rather than demand things not suitable for him.
Master of all masters. Once there was a girl who wanted to get a job. She went to a job fair to apply for a position as a servant. At last, an old gentleman hired her and led her to his house. The man lived alone in an isolated house. He believed his knowledge was so great that he always called things by complex names. On the first day of work, the man taught his new servant all these unusual names. He said to her,
The first thing you need to know is, what will you call me?
Master, Mister, or whatever you please, sir.
The servant answered,
You must call me Master of all masters,
said the man. He pointed to his bed and asked,
And what would you call this?
A bed or couch or whatever you please, sir.
She answered.
No, that's my barnacle. What about these?
He said, pointing to his pantaloons.
Breeches or trousers or whatever you please, sir.
She answered.
You must call them squibs and crackers.
The master said.
And what would you call her?
Asked he, pointing to his cat.
Cat or kitty or whatever you please, sir.
She answered.
You must call her White-Faced Simony. Now this.
The master gestured to the fire.
What would you call it?
Fire or flame or whatever you please, sir.
She answered.
You must call it Hot Cockalorum. And what about this?
The master went on, pointing to the water.
Water or wet or whatever you please, sir.
She answered.
No, Pondalorum is its name. And what do you call this?
The master asked, pointing to the house.
House or cottage or whatever you please, sir.
She answered.
No, you must call it High Topper Mountain,
replied the master. The servant listened and carefully wrote down everything her master said. Unluckily, that night, a fire suddenly broke out. The servant woke her master in a fright and cried,
Master of all masters, get out of your barnacle and put on your squids and crackers. For white-faced Simony has got a spark of hot cockalorum on its tail. And unless you get some pondalorum, High Topper Mountain will be all on hot cockalorum.
Because these names were so long and complex, it took the servant a while to finish what she was saying. But the fire spread so quickly that by then it was too late. The master and servant only escaped death by inches and had to watch their house burn to the ground. What a shame! If only the man had not complicated matters, he and the servant could have stopped the fire and saved the house.
Thumbelina. A long time ago, there was a kind woman that wanted children. But she was not able to have a baby. She thought about how nice it would be to have a little girl, even a very tiny one. A fairy was listening and decided to grant her wish. She gave the lady a flower pot with a seed inside. Take good care of this little seed, the fairy said, and one day you will have a wonderful surprise. The lady watered the seed every day. Soon, the seed sprouted. She made sure it had enough sunlight. The plant grew healthy and strong. Then a bud appeared and became a tulip. When the tulip opened, there was a beautiful little girl inside. The baby was no larger than her thumb. I will name you Thumbelina, the kind woman said. The woman made Thumbelina a bed out of a walnut shell. She used a tulip petal as a blanket. As time went by, Thumbelina grew into a girl. Then she became a lady, but she did not grow very big. One day, an ugly toad came by. He saw Thumbelina and fell in love with her. When she was asleep one night, the toad kidnapped her. The toad took her to live with him on his lily pad in the pond. Please let me go, Thumbelina begged. I am so unhappy here. A swallow was sitting in a tree nearby. When the toad was away, she decided to help. "Come with me, and I will take you to a better place," the swallow said. "My home is warm and sunny. You are welcome to live in the loveliest flower in the garden." Thumbelina quickly agreed and jumped onto the swallow's back. They flew and flew through the sky. When they arrived in the swallow's home, Thumbelina saw how beautiful it was. The swallow introduced her to a handsome fairy that lived in the garden. He was small like her, and they soon fell in love. The fairy was a prince. He was the son of the Flower King. He asked Thumbelina to marry him, and they had a beautiful wedding. Thumbelina became queen of the Flower Kingdom, and they lived happily ever after. Tanabata, the Weaver Girl and the Cowherder. There once was a princess named Orihime. She was an excellent weaver. Her weaving loom was located by the Heavenly River, which is now also known as the Milky Way. The princess was so busy weaving that she would never have time to find a husband. "I really wish I had time away from the loom," the princess sighed. "But I have so much weaving to do and so many clothes to make." Orihime's father, God of the heavens, realized how lonely she was. So he decided to arrange Orihime to meet a cowherder, Hikoboshi, who lived on the other side of the Milky Way. "I have never been around cows," Orihime told her father. "We would have nothing in common. But because you asked, Father, I will go and meet him."
You may or may not like him,
her father said.
but either way, it will be good for you to spend time away from the loom.
Orihime and Hikoboshi fell in love instantly and married. "I never thought I would fall in love with a cowherder. But now I can think of nothing but you," Orihime said.
And I never thought I would fall in love with a princess.
Hikoboshi said.
But in marrying you, all my dreams have come true.
Their love for each other was so deep. Orihime lost all interest in weaving beautiful clothes, and Hikoboshi allowed his cows to wander all over the heavens. When Orihime's father saw what was happening, he became angry. Weaving needed to be done, and the cows simply could not be allowed to wander all over the heavens. So he ordered the lovers to part. "Please, let us stay together," Orihime pleaded with her father. "We love each other so much." Orihime's father thought for a while. Then he said,
All right, Orihime, you and Hikoboshi can meet once a year on Tanabata on the 7th day of the 7th month. But you can only meet if you return to your weaving.
At last, the 7th day of the 7th month came. They found the heavenly river, now known as the Milky Way, was too difficult to cross because there was no bridge. Orihime cried and cried. A flock of magpies saw her sadness and decided to help. They flew to the river and made a bridge so Orihime could spend the day with Hikoboshi. It is said that if it rains on Tanabata, the magpies will not come. Therefore, until now, the Japanese always wish for good weather on Tanabata so that the magpies bridge can help the two lovers to be reunited.
The Goose Girl. Once upon a time, there was a princess named Annie. Annie loved to ride in the fields upon her horse, Falada. Falada could talk, so Annie and Falada would speak together. One day, Annie's father, the king, fell off his horse while he was out riding and died. The queen had only her daughter now. Soon, it became time for Annie to go to the next country to marry the prince who lived there. The queen gave Annie a handkerchief and said,
"Keep this handkerchief with you at all times. It will protect you against all evil."
Thank you, Mother,
said Annie. The queen bid her goodbye, and Annie and her maid set out. Annie rode her special horse, Falada, and the maid rode a pony. In time, they came to a brook, and the princess wanted a drink of water.
I am thirsty. Please bring me some water,
Annie asked her maid. The maid was rude and refused the princess's demand.
"No, I will not. If you are thirsty, get down yourself and go down to the water. I will not be your maid anymore,"
the maid replied. The princess was so thirsty that she got down off her horse, knelt over the brook, and drank water. As she did so, the handkerchief fell into the water and drifted away.
Oh no!
The maid saw it and knew that the princess was no longer protected. The maid insisted that she ride Falada and the princess would ride the pony. She made the princess wear her maid's clothes, and she wore the princess's royal clothes.
"Aha! Now you will do what I say. Give me your horse to ride, and you will have my pony. Give me your clothes to wear, and you will have mine,"
the maid said. Then the maid threatened.
"Do not tell anyone what has happened."
Annie had to promise. They entered the neighboring kingdom and were greeted with great joy by the prince. The prince married the maid, and the real princess was sent to work with a goose boy. The maid was afraid that the horse Falada might tell someone the truth, so she talked to the prince.
Kill Falada, the horse. He caused a lot of trouble on the way.
Annie heard that Falada would be killed. She begged the goose boy, who had been ordered to kill Falada, to find a way to save it. The goose boy took pity on Annie, so he agreed. He brought Falada to a barn. Every day, Annie passed by to visit and talk to Falada. The goose boy was often nearby and heard their story. One day, the goose boy told the king everything he'd heard them say. The king realized that Annie was the real princess. The maid was sentenced to death for her lies and treachery. Then the real princess, Annie, became the prince's wife, and they lived happily ever after.
The Ugly Duckling. A mother duck lived on a farm by a quiet pond. She had a nest made of straw. Every day, the mother duck hoped her eggs would hatch. When the ducklings finally came through the shells, the mother duck had a big surprise. 4 of her ducklings had beautiful yellow feathers, but 1 duckling had gray feathers. He looked nothing at all like the others. The mother duck loved this unusual duckling as much as her other children, but his brothers and sisters constantly teased him. "You're such an ugly duckling!" They all laughed. The ugly duckling wanted to play with the other ducklings, but every time he tried to join in the fun, they chased him away. "Why are they all so much prettier than me?" the ugly duckling thought. "Don't we all come from the same family?" Finally, the poor little duckling could stand no more of their bullying. He thought, "No one here likes me. I can't live here any longer." The duckling left the pond and went into the woods. He found a small cottage where an old woman lived at the edge of the forest with a hen and a cat. "Oh my, where did you come from?" the old woman asked the duckling. "If you don't have a home, you can live here with me." The old woman really liked the duckling. She made sure he had enough food to eat. But when she wasn't watching, her hen and cat chased him away. "Where can I go to be happy?" the duckling cried. "Everywhere I go, I am teased and chased." Winter was coming. Snow fell from the sky, and the icy wind whipped through the trees. It was so cold that the poor duckling almost froze. One day, a farmer saw the ugly duckling.
You look like you could use a place to stay.
The farmer said. The duckling happily followed the farmer home. But the farmer had children, and they loved to tease and chase him. Soon, the duckling left the farm. He traveled a few miles and spent the winter in a nearby marsh. There were other birds in the marsh, but none looked like the ugly duckling. Eventually, spring arrived. One day, the ugly duckling saw a group of swans swimming on the pond. The swans were so beautiful and graceful that he had to swim closer to watch them. Will the swans tease and chase me too? The ugly duckling wondered. But the swans did not chase and tease him. Instead, they welcomed him as one of their own. Then the ugly duckling looked at his reflection in the water. To his surprise, the ugly duckling discovered that he was now a beautiful swan.
The Two Melons. There was once an honest, poor woman living in a small village. One day, while she was growing vegetables in her front yard, a bird fell to the ground in front of her. It seemed like the bird had been shot in the wing.
Oh, little precious,
said the woman. She cupped her hands and gently scooped the bird off the ground. The kind woman brought the bird inside her house and placed it on a soft towel. Every day, she fed it and took care of its broken wing. Soon, the bird healed, and the woman took it outside and set it free.
Goodbye, and be well,
she said to the bird. One early morning, as the kind woman slept, she heard a tapping noise on her window. She came close to the window and realized it was the bird she had rescued.
You came back!
Smiling, she opened the window. The bird flew in, dropped a seed into her hand, and flew away. The woman had no idea what kind of seed it was, but she planted it in her yard and watered it every day. Finally, the seed sprouted and matured into a tree, on which grew one big melon. The woman was now out of money and could not buy anything to eat. She was so hungry that she decided to eat the melon for lunch. As she cut it up, she heard it chink in her hands. Inside the melon were many treasures: diamonds, rubies, pearls, and gold coins. Thanks to this fortune, she could live happily for the rest of her life. Among the kind woman's neighbors was a busybody. She grew envious of the kind woman.
She is so lucky. Why does she deserve a big treasure just because she saved a little bird? If only I found an injured bird, I would definitely become much richer than she,
thought the mean woman. So, the busybody went out to the yard, got a handful of rocks, and threw them at the birds flying overhead. Finally, she hit one. It crashed to the ground with a broken wing. She picked up the bird and took it inside. Then she fed it and fixed its broken wing, just as the kind woman had done. In the end, the bird healed and flew away. A few days later, the bird came back with a melon seed. Eager, the mean woman planted it, dreaming about her future treasure. From that day on, she stopped working and spent all her money on parties. Soon, she ran out of money, but she was not worried. She went to the garden where she had planted the seed, which had now grown into a tree with a melon on it. She picked the melon and then found a big rock to break it open. But inside, instead of precious jewels and treasures, there were only terrifying and poisonous snakes and insects. They were as ugly and evil as her soul. Having no treasures as expected, the mean woman spent the rest of her life living in poverty and regret. Everything has its price. The evil you do remains with you. The good you do returns to you.
The Wind and the Sun. The wind always bragged about his powerfulness.
I'm strong. I can blow leaves down the street. I can blow a cap off a boy's head. I can make a little girl shake,
said the wind. He believed he was stronger than anyone, even the sun. Unlike the wind, the sun was gentle and nice. She made heat and light for people, but she did not brag about this and usually remained quiet. The wind thought the sun was weaker than him. He disregarded the sun's rays and beams of light.
I like the light of the moon more than I like yours,
said he. The sun just smiled.
Whatever you say, I still love my job,
she replied. Just then, the wind saw a man walking along a road. The man was wearing a pair of pants, a shirt, a sweater, a coat, and laced boots. The wind made a bet with the sun. He said,
I can get the man to take off his clothes by using my powers, but you can't. Do you dare to compete with me?
The sun accepted the challenge. The wind went first. He took a deep breath and started to blow freezing blasts of air. However, it didn't work. The man kept walking. He pulled his coat tighter around him and held onto the top near the collar. He even took gloves out of his pocket and put them on his hands. No matter how hard the wind tried, the man did not take off his clothes. Finally, the wind ran out of breath and gave up. Then came the sun's turn. She closed her eyes and sent hot sunbeams down the road where the man walked. The man felt very hot. He gradually took off his coat, his sweater, his shirt, and then his gloves. He even took off his boots and walked on his bare feet. Thus, the sun won the contest. The wind became sad and angry. He hid his face and did not want to meet anyone else. Seeing this, the sun gently smiled and said,
"My dear friend, this contest does not prove anything. Neither of us is stronger than the other. We both have our own jobs to do. As long as we complete our special jobs, people will have enough wind, light, and sunshine to maintain their lives. That is our priority, not competing against each other."
Now the wind realized how foolish she was to have such an arrogant attitude. After that, he and the sun enjoyed their special jobs and lived in harmony.
The Emperor's New Clothes, written by Katie Stanley. Once upon a time, there was an emperor who loved beautiful clothes. He was looking for the best tailor to make clothes for him. Two brothers heard the news. They were not tailors, but they said they were. They were lying crooks. "We can make the most fashionable clothes," they called out loudly outside the palace gate. The emperor agreed to meet them. "We are very good tailors," said the brothers. "We will sew the most fashionable suit for you. It will be so light and fine that it will seem invisible. Only those who are stupid will not see it." The emperor ordered the suit to be made. He gave them lots of money for it. "Ha ha ha! We will trick the emperor," the two brothers said, laughing. They pretended to work day and night. In time, the emperor sent his assistant to check their work. They showed him the suit, but he could not see anything at all. He did not want to be called stupid, so he said it was beautiful. He lied to the emperor. He said they were the most fashionable clothes he had ever seen. Finally, the emperor's new suit was finished. I do not see anything," thought the emperor. He didn't want to be called stupid, so he said, "The suit is very beautiful." The emperor pretended to put on the invisible suit. Everyone clapped their hands, but he was not wearing anything at all. The emperor wanted to show off his new clothes. He walked around the city. "The emperor has no clothes," everyone thought. But no one said anything. They did not want to be called stupid. "Ha ha ha! Look, the emperor does not have on any clothes," a little boy said, pointing at the emperor. Everyone was shocked, but they started to laugh too. The emperor knew he was tricked. He was so embarrassed. He ran straight to the palace.
Be Brave, written by Curtis Norris. "Come on, kids," called the mother bear. It's time for bed.
Okay, Mommy.
Two little bears, Jack and Lily, sang together. Then they hopped into bed. Mommy tucked them in and said, "Good night." Then she turned off the light and shut the door. Now it was dark inside the room.
Jack,
whispered Lily.
are you asleep? Of course not,
said Jack.
Mommy just turned out the light. Are you afraid?
She asked in the dark.
Because I am. Don't be afraid,
Jack replied.
Be brave like me.
You are brave?
She asked.
What does it mean to be brave?
It means I'm not scared of anything,
Jack answered.
Not even the dark?
Asked Lily with a shaky voice.
Not even the dark,
said Jack.
There's nothing in the dark to be afraid of. Now go to sleep.
I want to be brave,
continued Lily.
But I think there are things to be afraid of in the dark.
Like what?
Jack asked.
Like a monster in the closet,
whispered Lily.
There's nothing in the closet, Lily. Be brave,
Jack repeated, but he was starting to feel not so brave himself.
I want to be brave. I'm trying to be brave, but I really think that there is something in the closet,
insisted Lily.
Don't be silly, Lily,
said Jack.
There is nothing in the...
Just then, the closet door opened and something came out.
A monster!
Screamed Jack.
Ah!
Lily only laughed and said,
Be brave, Jack. It's only Milo.
Their playful friend jumped onto the bed and gave Lily a big lick on her cheek.
You see?
She giggled.
There's nothing to be afraid of in the dark. I'm glad you taught me to be brave, Jack.
Jack laughed too, and then they all went to sleep. Little, Little Firefly. Written by Leanne Thompson. Little, little firefly, lighting up the little light, like a little star in the night, on the high summer sky. Little, little firefly, lighting up the little light, to help bird get home in a dark, dark night. Little, little firefly, lighting up the little light, to help Bunny find his carrot in a dark, dark night. Little, little firefly, lighting up the little light, to help Frog study in a dark, dark night. Little, little firefly, lighting up the little light, to help Mommy Mouse see her baby mice in a dark, dark night. Little, little firefly, lighting up the little light, to help everybody in the woods in a dark, dark night.
The Monster Under the Bed. Written by Leanne Thompson. Ken was scared of the dark because the dark hid a monster under his bed. The monster had blue fur, wide eyes, and a mouth like a dark hole. Every night, Ken was too scared to turn off the light. What if the monster came and ate him alive? One day, Ken was on his bed. Suddenly, the light went off. Oh no! What should he do? Then, Ken saw the monster by his bed. Ken was shaking. He couldn't run. The monster had blue fur and a mouth like a dark hole. It even had 2 sharp teeth. But the monster ran away. The monster didn't eat Ken. It hid behind the curtain. The monster was crying. Ken was still scared, but came closer and closer. Then he asked,
"What happened?"
The monster looked at Ken with eyes full of tears and cried, You scare me." The monster whispered, "I am scared you will hurt me." Ken understood now. The monster was not scary at all. Ken told the blue monster,
"I was scared too. I thought you would eat me."
"I never hurt anyone, but I am sad because I don't have friends. Can you be my friend?" The monster asked nicely, and Ken was happy to say,
"Of course."
The monster smiled. He was so cute. He was Ken's special friend. But then the light came on again. The monster was gone. Sunlight filled Ken's room. Ken lazily opened his eyes. Ken looked under the bed, and he found nothing. It was just a dream. Ken is no longer scared of the monster or the dark. Monsters are not real. Even so, Ken wants to see his blue monster friend again in his dream.
Twin sisters. July has a twin sister, Julia. They look a lot alike. They have the same clothes, purses, and shoes. They have the same friends to play with. They do the same homework from school. They help each other. They talk about dreams. I want to be a doctor in the future, July said. Aww. I want to become a teacher, said Julia. They go to the zoo and look at the same animals. July and Julia are not only siblings, but they are also best friends.